calls it a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swing and a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walker Buehler.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Matthew Moreno. And once again, special guest Anthony Witrado is here with us on a live Friday night edition of DodgerHeads. Anthony, of course, covers Major League Baseball for Forbes. And guys, it's good to be with you. Anthony, thanks for joining us. I know you've got your Lakers sweatshirt on. You're keeping tabs on what the Lakers do tonight. So it's good to have you back with us.
Yeah, it's great to be back, guys. I had a good time with our first run, and so excited about doing the live show now.
All right. Well, here we are, Matt. We did have a game today. The Dodgers did play once again for the second day in a row. We had a rain out. We're going to get to Mookie Betts and Gavin Lux. I know that's the big storyline, both out of the day and out of this game. So that's coming. We're going to talk Walker Buehler yesterday. We'll talk Trevor Bauer making an appearance against some Dodgers coming up. But Matt, as far as the game that I was going to say we just saw, but it got rained out, so it's been over for a little while. Give me some thoughts, reactions, takeaways.
Yep. I think first, with the rain out on Thursday night and now Friday night, before they've happened, they've gone into a delay. They brought out the tarp, and I think we need to make a spring training rule where if there's enough rain and you're pausing the game, just call it. We're not going to do a rain delay for a spring training game. Give me a break. Fortunately, Thursday night, it was like 10 minutes, and tonight it was, I don't know, maybe about the same amount of time before they called it as well. The Reds might have a little bit of a gripe because they were working on a perfect game. The Dodgers were doing a whole lot of nothing. And yeah, I mean, offensively, there wasn't a lot to write home about. And of course, we're going to get into kind of the defense because that's where obviously the big news was. And if you want, in all seriousness, if you do want to look for some other headline for the Dodgers, Justin Wilson opened tonight and he made another, I think he's up to like 7 appearances this spring. Ryan Yarbrough then pitched out of the bullpen, which Dave Roberts did recently say that Yarbrough's best role for the team is as a swingman. So that was kind of an indication of, I think, what we'll see from Yarbrough during the regular season.
Okay. Yeah. Anthony, we were talking right before we started. You've been a beat reporter before. Rainouts in spring training. I mean, I imagine you're stamping your approval on top of as soon as the tarp comes out, just call it.
Yeah. I mean, spring training games, we were like, if it starts sprinkling, bang it. we were done, right? No, but if the tarp comes out, that's got to be it.
Yeah.
You know, it's the Cactus League, especially a night game for everyone who's working. And you know, the players in spring training, you know, let's say you play 3-4 innings, you get 2 at bats or something like that. If you're a position player, like you're not necessarily sticking around if you're on the road. You're in your car or you know, getting a ride back to the facility to get your stuff and leave. So yeah, especially at night, everyone's just ready to go if it starts to sprinkle.
Well, and I'm imagining, you know, we're a couple weeks into spring training now. We're a few weeks in, you know, probably the shine of baseball being back and things to do. Like I can imagine, Matt, you've been in the Dodgers press box. There's a handful of personalities in that group, and I can imagine the reaction as the tarp comes out. Like you said, it's only a 10-minute gap, but those 10 minutes, I can only imagine what's being said in those press boxes.
Yeah, there's definitely some grumbling, and so, you know, what are we doing here? Let's get, as Anthony was saying, like, let's just go. It is a little bittersweet because, you know, in all seriousness, you do have like minor league players, right? Who these games, they mean a lot to them. And so it is unfortunate that they don't necessarily get to play, but selfishly from our side, from the writing side, and from, you know, maybe some of the all-stars and regulars that Anthony alluded to, like they're probably ready. And tonight, you know, they got into the bottom of the 5th. So it was at least a little bit longer than Thursday night, where they only were able to, I think, do 3 innings.
Yeah. And obviously for fans that maybe are out there only for a few days, I mean, it would be brutal to have tickets for a few games and have a couple of them rained out. I was surprised. Camelback Ranch is refunding tickets for tonight's game. So if you bought tickets through the Dodgers or through Camelback, even though the game played a few innings and then was canceled, you are getting a refund on that. And so that's it's good on the Dodgers and good on Camelback, because, you know, you could kind of see it either way. That game will not be made up. So that's part of the reason why, which is probably good news, because if you had tickets for today, odds are you wouldn't have been in town whenever that game gets made up. But
right. You know, it's good too, because I think, you know, the biggest thing for teams and players is like, you get out of these games injury free.
Yeah.
Like that's first and foremost, especially as you're getting this close to the regular season starting. And, the fields are not the best kept in the Cactus League, or the Grapefruit League also, like just spring training facilities in general. Not that they're horrible, but they're not major league ready fields, right? And so, turf comes up and the dirt's not what it is in the big leagues. And there are times when those things matter. And the last thing you want is somebody to hit a bag that's wet or something like that, and boom, they're out for opening day. So getting everybody out for both teams healthy is the priority number one. So I think that's why they wait. They wait the obligatory 10 minutes to say that they gave it a chance, and then we're out.
Love it. I love it. Well, obviously the big storyline tonight is the big storyline of the day. And it was funny because the three of us were on here not that long ago talking about, is Gavin Lux the answer at shortstop and all the other options we have. And ironically enough, Matt, I jokingly asked you a question about Mookie Betts moving to shortstop, because if I have one dub in the category of my takes over the last 18 months, I was early on Mookie Betts to shortstop last year. I had given up all hope. I was half-heartedly presenting it. And today the news comes out that Dave Roberts has a conversation with both Gavin Lux and with Mookie Betts about switching those guys' places. Mookie Betts will be the shortstop. Gavin Lux will be second base. That is the plan that Dave Roberts described as permanent for now, which, I mean, we might need to do some vocabulary lessons about what permanent means, because permanent for now are opposite meaning things. But he said, he had the conversation with them on Thursday and just said that Lux, he said, quote, was feeling the toll of it related to the mental aspect of those woes. And then he said, the calendar where we're at, we've got to make a decision. I think this is what's best for the Dodgers right now. Anthony, I'll come to you first. We sort of jokingly mentioned this as an option, mostly not because it wasn't, none of us felt like it was a good option. It just seemed so unrealistic 24 hours ago when we chatted. So how surprised were you that in A, such a short amount of time, a decision was made, and B, that this was the decision they went with?
Yeah, I was shocked at a couple of things. I was shocked that in the span of probably like 36 hours or so, went from like, we have the utmost confidence that Gavin's going to figure this out, to, well, we got to make sure that he's ready for this, to you're done, dude. And I mean, it happened that quick, and the Dodgers typically don't operate like that, at least from, when you speak to Dave about things. And we kind of talked about that too. But, we also mentioned last night that what kind of mental weight is this putting on Gavin Lux? And Dave mentioned that in part of the reason for doing this. And so, all of that was a little surprising, but I'm with you. I was surprised that it was Mookie, because we didn't even, you presented all the options behind door A, door B, and Mookie wasn't behind any of those doors. And I thought, for fair reason, I didn't expect him to do that. Part of the reason I thought moving him to second base was to take a little bit of the load off of his body. And moving him to probably like the easiest position in the diamond in terms of like physical toll, for the most part, aside from maybe third base. But, so I for preservation purposes, I did not think Mookie was an option at shortstop, which is one of the more demanding positions on the field. And so for them to make that move with him, that part of it was a little shocking, because like I said, I was under the impression that part of the move to second was to kind of preserve him and keep him fresh.
Yeah, Matt, we're guessing here, but I would be so fascinated to know how the decision-making process played out on this one. Like, I don't think Mookie Betts is going to go to Dave Roberts and say, hey, I can play short, right? Like, he's not going to undercut his guy. But I just wonder, like, how does it get to a point where they're asking Mookie that question? Obviously, Mookie, by all accounts, seems like the type of guy whose response is going to be exactly what you would want it to be. Hey, whatever you need. But I guess I would love to know kind of what that what the decision-making process was in that process. We've got a super chat here from Lori, and this is an interesting one. Should we be treating our $365 million superstar as Chris Taylor? Mookie Betts, obviously the player being referred to here. They paid him a lot of money. He's one of the best right fielders in Major League Baseball defensively. We knew he was moving to second base. Now he's shortstop. Is this the right way to treat a guy that's of the caliber of Mookie Betts, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, to answer Lori's question, I think the Dodgers saw everybody yelling at them for not spending money to re-sign Corey Seager. maybe a smaller contingent, but yelled at them a little bit for not re-signing Trey Turner when he became a free agent, then not going after any of the other big name shortstops. So look, Dodgers can now say, hey, we have a high paid shortstop on our roster now as well.
More expensive than both. Seager, $325 million. Mookie's making $365. Look, I mean, here's my thing. The reason that I kind of have advocated for this in the past is, I think Mookie can do it. I don't think he's going to be a Gold Glover at shortstop, but I just think he's athletic enough to be able to figure this out. I think he's going to be league average without having any practice or training at this position. And I think if you give him reps and actually tell him this is going to be your position just about every day, then he's going to be able to figure it out. So that's part of it. But secondly, I just think his bat at that position, a premium position, and a position that typically doesn't come with a whole lot of offensive production, I think is a valuable thing for the Dodgers. I think it's easier to find a second baseman than it is to find a shortstop. And if you don't believe me, the Dodgers don't trust Gavin Lux to play shortstop and seemingly have no issue moving him over to second base where he's played before. So, like, they have a lot of guys that can play second base. I mean, Miguel Vargas could be a guy that could be in the mix at second base. They could shift some people around. Max Muncy has played some second base. So they have more guys that can play second base. So I've always just liked the idea of Mookie there. But to Anthony's point as well, I understand that part of the reason you moved Mookie to second was to probably help him offensively and lessen the toll on his body. And so I get all that. Anthony, I'll come back to you. And Lori, thank you again for the super chat. We greatly appreciate it. We got another one actually here from Laura, so we'll throw this one up. Thank you for the super chat. Do you believe the change in positions can or will affect Mookie's offense? Anthony, I'll come to you with this one. Do you think that the more physical load, the higher defensive responsibilities, and let's be honest, a position that he's far less comfortable playing than second base, which he's been getting reps at for the last month or so, do you think that's going to have an impact on his offensive performance?
I think it's possible. That's a key position. The transition to second base from that side of the diamond is much smoother than it is going from second to short. Yeah. The responsibilities change a great deal there. The fact that he hasn't been taking reps there at all, and I assume not even on the backfields, because somebody would have reported that. Hey, by the way, Mookie's taking ground balls at short 2 weeks ago or something like that, and so the fact that there was nothing like that out there tells me he's not really been preparing for this at all. Now, like you said, he's athletic enough, he's good enough that he can be an average shortstop without taking many reps there in the spring. I'll tell you what, though, if he were to get off to a slow start offensively to start the season, boy, those questions are going to come hot.
Yeah.
And whether it has anything to do with it or not, it's just a headache that you don't want to have to deal with if you're Mookie Betts or Dave Roberts or the organization. And so, to answer Laura's question a little better and a little more directly, he's so good offensively. I don't think it will affect him a whole lot, the position change, but we see it all the time. A slump to start in April, even though it might look the same as a slump in August, isn't covered the same, right? And so, he's going to get those questions, and so is the organization if he happens to start slowly. Again, I don't think he's so good that I don't think it will affect him that much with a bat. But if it comes to a situation where people are asking those questions, it could cause a slump to last a little longer.
I think you're spot on. Like, if Mookie Betts is playing shortstop and the batting average is 220 with just a pair of home runs in the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, I think people are going to make it a bigger deal. That said, I'm with you. I think, with the conversation with Lux has had a lot to do with kind of his ability mentally to respond to adversity, I guess is the best way to put it, and how he handles. Can you have a short memory? Can you forget about mistakes quickly? Clearly, he has struggled with that. Mookie, to me, feels like the exact opposite. Like, he feels like a type of guy that can compartmentalize, and the offense and defensive pieces. Like, he doesn't strike me, Matt, as a guy that is going to let one impact the other. Like, obviously, physically, I'm talking mentally. Physically, is shortstop going to wear his body down more? I think that's possible. I'm not sure we'll see that out of the gates, but if I had to guess, I don't think we see a dip in the offense simply because of a position change is where I would land.
I'm inclined to agree, but the wild card is going to be that Mookie hasn't had to play a position like shortstop for a full season. And so is it like I agree with you that if there is going to be some physical impact, we're not going to necessarily see it early on in the year. It might be middle of the summer, maybe, August or September potentially. And I mean, that possibility aside, Dave Roberts did say last season when they were moving Mookie into second base and shortstop on occasion as well, he felt that sort of improved Mookie's focus with hitting. Mookie disagreed with that when those comments were relayed to him. He said, well, I won my MVP out in right field, so I think that I'm fine. So I know that his mindset, speaking about Mookie's, is that it doesn't matter where he's playing on the field. He keeps that separate from hitting. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we can still rule out the possibility that having to play shortstop for a full season, which I will also add the caveat that I don't think the Dodgers are going to have him there for the full season, could ultimately have a physical impact on him.
Yeah. Looking at numbers, he had 98 innings on defense at shortstop last year, a fielding percentage of .935. He had three errors. One was a fielding error, 2 throwing errors from Mookie Betts. So again, that's being thrown into a position with no time to develop. I mean, the good news, I guess you could say, and part of the reason the Dodgers probably needed to make this decision is because now they've got 2 or 3 weeks where Mookie Betts can get reps at shortstop. And which, I mean, you have to remember that when he's playing shortstop in the middle of the season, the amount of practice time that he's getting is minimal. So the fact that he's going to get 3 weeks of real reps at shortstop, I think is going to make a big difference. And so we'll see how that one plays out. Laura, thank you for the super chat. We've got a couple more here. Grayson says this team should just get Montgomery and Adames and call it an offseason. Kidding, unless we talked about this one. Matt, I'll come back to you first on this. Montgomery, I'm assuming he's talking about Jordan Montgomery, the free agent pitcher, unrelated to this specific conversation. Adames, I think, is the more interesting name here because it's the name that is being batted around. Fabian Ardaya of The Athletic reporting that the Dodgers have had conversations and expressed interest in Willy Adames, but obviously have been unable to come to an agreement. Whether or not an offer was ever made, we don't know that, but we know that they're at least interested. You said, Matt, that you don't think this is going to be the plan for the entire season. So I will ask a good journalistic question as the host of this show and say, tell me more about that, Matt. Tell me more about that Mookie Betts is not playing shortstop all season.
Yeah, I mean, I think an Adames trade is obviously maybe can it be considered one of the more likely options, but I don't see that.
The options in your mind.
So I think at some point, maybe I have to backtrack a little bit. I don't want to be completely long-winded, but first, going back to our original topic of, how the Dodgers in terms of being surprised with the Dodgers making this decision with Gavin Lux, I thought if anything, they would just say, hey, we're going to platoon him for now, keep him at shortstop, because doing this move now, to me, Gavin Lux is never playing shortstop for the Dodgers, in my opinion. I just don't know if there's any coming back from this.
Let me pause you there. Anthony, do you agree with that? Do you think Gavin Lux's time with the Dodgers as a shortstop prospect is over with?
I think the answer is yes. And I think the way they handled it gives us an indication. I think Matt's right about that. Again, that, 36 to 48 hour period of going from, he's our guy to he's not our guy, and everything in between, I think sort of says it. And I did some calling around on this earlier in the day and, spoke to some people who are close to the situation more on Gavin's side. And he was told about this on Thursday morning. So he knew this. So when we were having our conversation yesterday, he had already been told. I don't necessarily know when Mookie was told, but I know that he was told then. And Dave told him, and it was made very clear that this was a decision to nobody's surprise that came from up above, above Dave's pay grade, if you want to call it that. But I think the fact that it was handled in that way says they don't see him playing that 6th spot anytime in the near future. I also would agree that this probably isn't Mookie's position the entire season, but it won't be Gavin's either.
Yeah. Interesting. I think you don't make a drastic decision like this on a whim, and you don't make a drastic decision like this with any intention of ever rewinding the tape. Like, I mean, is there a crazy scenario where Gavin Lux maybe ends up at shortstop because of some pinch hitting and some rotations? Like, he's obviously a guy that is a quote unquote option there. But I don't think at any point this season, I agree with you, they're going to say, hey, Mookie's on the 15-day IL, or Rojas is out for a couple weeks, and Mookie's and Gavin Lux is our shortstop for the next few weeks. I think that ship has sailed. Hey, figure out second base. This is the plan moving forward. This is the option. And it could be, he could be a shortstop somewhere else. But for me, Anthony, I think I agree with you guys that this is it for his time in LA.
I think part of that too is, we talked about this yesterday about giving him some mental stability with when it comes to these moves. And I think that moving him back and forth, like you said, let's say Mookie, bangs a toe or something like that, and he's on the DL or the IL. I don't think they move Gavin back over there unless they're in a real jam.
Yeah.
I think it would have to be something like that, because I think they want to say to him, now go own second base.
Yeah.
It's yours. Go take it. Be our guy there. Because I think part of it when that whole talk about him being uncomfortable there in the past, I think because part of his brain and part of his psyche was like, I'm eventually going to get back to the other side. I don't want to be here. This is a stopgap move. Once Corey's gone, I'll be back over there and I'll be happy again. Now it's permanent, or, permanent for now, or however they put it. Right. But I think this gives him an opportunity to kind of let it sink in, come to terms with it, that you are the Dodgers second baseman, and now go and take over that position. So I don't think that jerking him back and forth, from shortstop to second base is going to help that any. So I think the Dodgers, if they're wise about this, which I expect that they're going to be, he's going to be their second baseman, even if Mookie has a day off or something like that on the other side.
Yeah, and look, even at shortstop, he had Miguel Rojas sort of right behind him. So at second base, there's not like a guy who that's his position that's right behind. Obviously, there are guys that can play it, but I think it's second base. It feels like there is far less competition, obvious competition. So it's possible for him to not be like, crap, if I make an error today, am I going to be back on the field tomorrow? So, okay, Matt, I cut you off. So you don't think Mookie Betts is going to be the shortstop for the entirety of this season. You don't think it's going to be Gavin Lux. So is it Miguel Rojas that's going to get a lot of time? Is it Kike Hernandez? Or again, going back to Grayson's comment here, is it a trade for a guy like Willy Adames?
I think it'll be Mookie until the Dodgers make some sort of trade, or at least like really, canvass the market, see who may be available. And if the trade deadline comes and they weren't necessarily able to pull anything off, then at that point, maybe they sort of reevaluate. Does Miguel Rojas start getting more starts there? Or if Kike Hernandez, shows that he's able to bounce back, and like we alluded in the video that we posted this morning, if he is healthy and playing a better defensive shortstop, then maybe he's part of the equation as well. But then, Jeff, like I do agree that right now there isn't pressure at second base for Gavin Lux. But if the Dodgers make a trade for a shortstop, which I think the three of us, I know Anthony agreed with me. I think, Jeff, you're probably in the same boat that they will maybe look to make a move.
Yeah.
Mookie Betts is going to have to go somewhere. And the Dodgers already made it clear that the original plan for this season was for him to play second base.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for Gavin Lux? Is he now a bat off the bench, or is he getting traded?
Maybe they'll trade Mookie for Adonis.
yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, or move him to the out, or move Lux to the outfield where Anthony's preferred position.
I think he's an outfielder. I've been saying that since kind of since he came up and we could see that he wasn't so smooth moving over to second base. I thought he was an outfielder from the start. I think his athleticism plays there. Now he's a left fielder because we've seen the arm, but I think he's an outfielder.
Let's talk briefly. Adames is the name. I'll throw one other name out there, and I'll acknowledge the unlikeliness of this move, but it was a name that I had heard as a guy who could potentially be available, and I was super intrigued by it. I don't think the Padres would ever trade with the Dodgers. I'll preface all of this with, but Ha-Sung Kim is a free agent at the end of this year, and he just strikes me. He checks a lot of the boxes of Willy Adames, really good defensively, and I just like the profile more on the offensive side of things. 112 weighted runs created plus last year. He was one of the top guys in wins above replacement for much of the season. So he's a name that are the Padres desperate enough to cash in some of, they've made trades before. The Matt Beatty trade didn't go super well for AJ Preller, but hey, maybe he goes back to, try again. But I don't know. I mean, Matt, like, is there another name out there besides Adames? Are you an Adames guy? We know Blake Williams is an Adames guy. We know Scott from our show is an Adames guy. If they are going to make a move, there could be names we don't know about now, but the guys that we know potentially could be moved. Is there anybody that jumps out to you?
I don't know if some of it is I just haven't necessarily watched enough of Ha-Seong Kim. I'm not particularly high on him, and same thing with Adames. Like neither one of, I think ultimately like the cost that it would be to acquire one of those guys, I just don't necessarily know if it's worth it. And honestly, I don't see the Padres trading with the Dodgers again, short of if the Dodgers say, hey, here's Emmett Sheehan and, ridiculous offer. And then the Padres say, okay, at that point, you can't say no. But
they asked for River Ryan back maybe in exchange for
But, the Dodgers aren't going to do something like that. So I don't know. I just don't see. I think Adames would be the more likely of those two, just because the Brewers, I assume, may not necessarily be in contention, and at some point will look to just sort of cash in since he'll be a free agent at the end of this year.
Anthony, what about you?
I could see the Padres start to sell off.
Yeah, I
really could. I think if the first third of this season doesn't go the way that they think it should, I think they start to dangle the pieces that they have that are valuable out there. I think probably everybody but maybe Fernando Tatis is probably a guy who they would field offers on. Now the Dodgers may pay a Dodgers rival tax, if they wanted somebody from them who was worth anything. So that may take them out of the running anyway, but I can see him being out there and him being available for the Dodgers. I will say that I think I would like to see that move made, assuming the prices, all things being equal.
Yeah.
I would like that. I would like to see that move more than the Adames one, I think.
Yeah. Kim won the Gold Glove at shortstop last year. The salary number is manageable. He's got a $10 million option for next year, which he will decline, is the expectation. But one thing that was interesting, I was just looking up some stuff. So if a guy is traded once the season is begun, then he is ineligible to receive a qualifying offer. So this article from The Athletic, and maybe it's been updated since, I think it's a couple weeks old, nobody knew what would happen if he got traded between the Korean series and the actual major. Like, is it possible that he could get traded after the Dodgers and Padres play and then still be eligible to receive a qualifying offer? The reason being, you would trade more to get a guy who you could then give a qualifying offer to, knowing that either he'll accept it or you're recouping some value there. So interesting. So something to keep an eye on. Again, I'm not saying it's likely that the Padres call up the Dodgers to make a move, but hey, if you're going to lose a guy for nothing, and you think you're good at your job, then try and get something from the Dodgers. We do have one more super chat here. Richard, sorry, it's taken us a few minutes. I think this is a sentiment that, Matt, I've seen a lot. $1 billion spent on the roster and not a dime at shortstop. Richard, they spent $365 million on their shortstop. Jeez Louise. They're spending $35 million a year on the shortstop. People aren't happy. No, I'm just kidding. He was always convinced Lux should start on the injured list and work his way back. Seen better arms on a chair. That's a great line, Richard. Thank you for that. Matt, I guess if we take a step back here and address what Richard is getting at, the roster building structure of the Dodgers, do you think it was as misguided as it appears today? The amount of faith and trust and hope they put in Gavin Lux being able to lock down the shortstop job?
I don't necessarily think it was misguided. I think, look, the Dodgers making the move this quickly tells me that internally they knew, that this was going to be somewhat of a long shot, or at least the odds were sort of stacked maybe against them in terms of Gavin Lux being able to take hold of the position. And I think they felt comfortable with, if we need to, we can go to Mookie Betts at shortstop. Miguel Rojas is also on the roster. So if for whatever reason, maybe Mookie would have given them some sort of pushback, then you have Miguel Rojas, who they relied on last season. Kike Hernandez is back with the team. I think, maybe this was an unknown factor into, maybe the Dodgers having a little bit more motivation than we sort of thought to get Kike back in the fold to give you more versatility, because Manuel Margot obviously is an outfielder, and you still have Chris Taylor if you need to play shortstop. So I think, look, no team, the Dodgers have put together an amazing team. Like, no team out there, no roster is perfect, whether you spend $1 billion or, $300 million, whatever your payroll is. the odds of having a perfect team are slim, right? Like it just doesn't necessarily work that way. And so I think they look like, were we going to complain that they signed Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto and traded for Tyler Glasnow, even with, maybe some of his injury concerns? Like, no. And so it was a calculated risk. And as much as they said publicly they believed in Gavin Lux, their internal metrics graded him out as fine, or however they worded it, they clearly knew that, this situation could happen, because again, like we keep harping on it, but look at how quickly they made this change.
Yeah. And that they extended Miguel Rojas, and that they, like there's all sorts of things they have done to cover their bases. Anthony, I love the phrase Matt just used. It was a calculated risk. You have to do this sometimes. You're not going to have sure things everywhere. They bet on a guy that was a future top prospect, a guy who played shortstop all coming up, that most people believed could stick originally at shortstop. So I get it. I get how they got to a place of saying, we're going to give Gavin Lux a shot, knowing that if it doesn't work out, they've got plan B, C, and D, which are Mookie Betts, Miguel Rojas, Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor, Trace Sweeney, a trade, fill in the blank here. They've got other options there. So knowing what we know now, like, of course they would have done things differently, but do you think they made a mistake making this sort of gamble?
No, and speaking of arms on chairs, there's a little bit of armchair quarterbacking going on with this move. Look, I mean, if your biggest roster problem at this point is, should we put Mookie Betts at shortstop and Gavin Lux at second base, your team's pretty good.
Yeah.
I tweeted this out earlier too. Like, if Gavin sticks at second base as a Dodger, he grades out as a little bit of a plus defender there, even with all of his kind of warts still that we saw. And if his bat continues to tick up like we think it will, he's an all-star caliber second baseman.
Yeah.
I think, I think we can't lose sight of that either. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Mookie being the everyday shortstop just because of the investment that they've made in him and that he's an MVP caliber player. And given his age, it's not like he's 22 or anything like that. I would like to see him probably back at second eventually, but if this is what it is, then this is what it is. And if you have an all-star shortstop and an all-star second baseman in the same season, you're doing pretty well for yourself. So in terms of the calculated risk, I 100% agree with that. I think they understood what they were getting themselves into, and they understood, look, we're going to spend on these parts of the roster. Look, in all honesty, when the offseason started, shortstop was not a priority position that they needed to go out and address. It just wasn't. The pitching was, and they did that. They did that twice over. And we're hoping for some health to come back and help them. And I think that was all understandable. And then Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I have no gripes about how the Dodgers handled their offseason at all. No Dodger fan should. And while this was a risk in leaning on Lux to be that everyday shortstop for you, I think it was one worth taking considering everything else that they did over the winter.
Let's do this real quick. We talked about the game today. Of course, Mookie Betts gets a ball hit to him right off the bat. Backhanded play, doesn't make it. Later, tries to turn a double play, makes a throw. Lux's throw bounces on its way to first. Lux gets a ground ball at second base, has this weird underhanded sidearm thing that I guess technically made its way to Freddie Freeman, but it definitely didn't look pretty. I want to talk about Gavin Lux briefly at second base, and this is going to be just a rapid fire question. I'll come to you, Matt, first. Do you think Gavin Lux can play second base? He was a 3-win player at second base back in 2022, a 114 weighted runs created plus on the offensive side, and then he ranked like 16th out of 38 in outs above average. I always say defensive metrics are a mess, whether or not you don't put a ton of stock in them, but I feel like that's about right. He's a league average second baseman. Let me rephrase that. He was a league average second baseman in 2022. Matt, do you believe that defensively, Gavin Lux mentally can get to a place where he can be a league average defensive second baseman?
I think he can. I don't think he will.
Okay. Anthony, what about you?
Like the throwing, it just continues to concern me.
I think he will.
Okay.
I think he will. I think he's so athletically gifted. There's a ton of talent in that guy.
Yeah.
I think it's so much of it is mental, I think, with him. It really is. And look, we're not speculating here. He has said this. He's come out and said that, there have been some mental blocks. It's been hard for him to sort of come to terms with some of the things that the Dodgers have done with him, putting him at second, and he should be applauded for that.
Yeah.
And I think that it's also part of the risk factor that Matt mentioned earlier. Again, I think that now telling him this is your permanent position here, hopefully that starts to settle him in. And I think if it does, I think if he can come to terms with him being a second baseman and not a shortstop, and that's not an easy shift. I'm not saying it like it is. Like if you come up as a shortstop and you believe you're a shortstop, we've seen it with a ton of guys, and then your organization tells you you're not, that is a whole mind shift that you have to deal with. And on the fly for a lot of guys, right? And so if he's able to handle that, I think that you're going to see a guy who can really play second base, and I think play it well, maybe not at the Gold Glove level, but he's not going to hurt you there. And if his bat plays, he becomes an all-star second baseman, and we start talking about this that second that happens.
Yeah. And even Roberts, by the way, said, quote, he's feeling the toll of it, referring to the mental aspect of Lux's throwing woes. So this is public stuff that even Dave Roberts is mentioning. And so we'll see how this one plays out. It's going to be obviously one of the biggest storylines is, can Gavin Lux figure out how to play second base at a competent level, and how that materializes over the next couple of weeks. I'm sure we will have lots to get to. Let's get to a couple other topics from Dodgers.
One quick thing, Jeff. One quick thing. Yeah. We talked about Mookie kind of getting ate up by that first ground ball he had, but when he made that turn to second base on the double play ball, he looked like he had been playing shortstop his entire career. Yeah,
it was a good play. No, it's a great point. I'm not worried at all about Mookie Betts at shortstop defensively, by the way. Like, I know everybody, our guy Blake tweeting out Willy Adames gifs as soon as he makes one error. No, relax. Mookie's going to be fine. He's going to figure this thing out. And the irony, by the way, was, and I sent this to Matt, Jim Bowden put out an article today that was like one guy in every camp that's surprising and impressing. Literally got sent out today. Gavin Lux was the guy. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up. To be fair, it was talking about his bat. And then like, well, if he can figure out the offense, it's like, well, Jim, they're actually demoting him from his starting position somewhere else. So maybe not the standout player in Dodgers camp, but the bat has been there. The bat has looked pretty good. Let's talk Walker Buehler, guys. Live BP yesterday, Jack Harris reporting he looked, quote, pretty sharp in a couple of innings of live BP, struck out 4 batters facing some of the minor leaguers in the organization. But I think it's guys like Jose Ramos who had been up with the major leagues. So when we say minor leaguers, we're not talking about high A. These are some of the guys that, are fringe 40-man roster, maybe even 40-man roster guys. Got a lot of swing and miss. Mark Pryor even yelled out, quote, locked in today. So Matt, we buying the hype with Walker Buehler, butane on his way back?
A little bit. I mean, I know amongst our staff, you and I have remained sort of the most optimistic with Buehler. Yeah. That being said, I know that he still has kind of a long road ahead before he's going to be back pitching for them with the delayed start and all that, and just being on an innings limit. But yeah, I mean, I think it's progress, right? And that's all I think you can sort of hope for at this point, is just continue to make steady progress little by little until you're ready to get back into games.
Yeah. Anthony, what about you, by the way? Lakers, big win over the Milwaukee Bucks. So shout out to the Lakers. D'Angelo Russell.
You see me peeking over like this? That's what I was doing. I was looking
most at of the time for us, it's somebody like my kid walking into the room or something. Anthony's watching D'Angelo Russell hit a go-ahead bucket with 5 seconds left. So shout out to the Lakers. But Anthony, we have not talked about this, as Matt alluded to. There's been some vibrant debates about Walker Buehler and expectations for 2024, given the injuries, given the sticky stuff, given fill in the blank. Where do you stand on Walker Buehler and kind of hopes and expectations for him this season?
I like that they're bringing him along slowly. I think it helps sort of ease the expectations. I think they're doing this the right way with him. I think in the past they've tried to rush certain guys back. Maybe Dustin May might have been one of those guys too. Even Buehler before with some of his stuff. But the fact that they've said from the start, like, he's not going to be ready for opening day, we're going to gradually ease him in. I think that's good for everybody. And I'll say this, having covered, at this point, 15 spring trainings or something like that, it's hard to look sharp as a pitcher on the backfield during the day in the Cactus League in Arizona with the weather the way it is.
Yeah.
It just is. It doesn't matter who you are. It's tough to look sharp. And so if they were saying, his stuff's crisp, it looks lively, that's a positive, especially for where he is, in his progress. I'm optimistic about it. I think that he is going to be a huge addition. It's going to be the equivalent of a trade essentially when he does come back. And so, I'm all for how they're bringing him along. And I think I'm with you guys. I'm optimistic that, he's going to come back fresh. And by the time the fall rolls around, he should be one of their horses.
Yeah, I like it. Add one to Team Butane on our show. We like that. We like to hear it. But look, the positive reports, the reports are coming from the Dodgers. So we have to take these all with a grain of salt. We're not getting sort of innocent, unbiased bystanders that are reporting these things. We don't know what the velocity is. He is playing against minor leaguers, all that stuff. If you were going to get a report, you would want, if it's against minor leaguers especially, you want to hear swing and miss. He got swing and miss. You want to hear that Mark Pryor was pleased. It sounds like Mark Pryor was pleased. Like the phrase Jack Harris saying he looked sharp is that's what you want to hear. It doesn't guarantee anything for a week, a month, 3 months from now, but it's a lot better than, hey, Walker Buehler got destroyed by Jose Ramos and his friends in live BP, or he only lasted 3 or 4 batters. Like those are the types of things, Anthony, that you could potentially have heard out of this. And just the fact that we're not hearing those things, I think in and of itself is a victory.
I think as reporters who are obviously not standing in the box, right. Yeah. And who don't want to be, and who are not, on one knee behind the pitcher. Yeah. So you can actually see movement and things like that. You read things like body language. Yeah. And if a guy doesn't have it that day, or he's not happy with his stuff that day, you're going to see it in how he's bouncing around the mound. And it sounded like, from reports from all the reporters who were on site there, that, there was a little pep there from Walker Buehler. And I think that in itself is a good sign also, because it meant he was feeling good about it.
Yeah. And to that point too, Jeff, let's remember, it wasn't that long ago that Dave did say, Buehler did kind of struggle with a bullpen session. And so he wasn't ready to face hitters. So again, like he's now faced batters twice this spring. He's trending in the right direction. Yeah. So that's, I think, the most important thing.
We'll go from one former Dodger pitcher, or I should say former as in we haven't seen him in a while, to another guy that is a familiar name at the very least. And Matt, I'll be honest, when I saw this headline, I had to do a double take and make sure I was reading this correctly. Trevor Bauer to pitch against Dodger minor leaguers. So a year after being released, he is playing for a traveling club from Japan, the Asian Breeze. And this is a group that comes to the United States and basically scrimmages against minor league teams. This will take place at Camelback Ranch. Awkward. Like, I don't know. That's the best word I've got to describe this, Matt.
Yeah, that no coincidence, I think, that Bauer is going to end up pitching against the Dodgers, even though this team does travel and play against other minor league affiliates of teams.
You have to pay your way onto this team, by the way, it sounds like. The players pay $2,500 to be on this team. And so, presumably Bauer views this as an opportunity to have an audition. But, man, bizarre story.
Yeah, I think he's looking at it as an opportunity to potentially overpower maybe some lower-level minor league hitters that I don't think the Dodgers, whether Bauer was involved or not, I don't think the Dodgers were going to be sending anybody really of note, upper level prospects. So I think this I don't know what's the best way I could put it. It's a curious, strange coincidence, I guess, I'll try to be diplomatic.
Yeah. And I believe the quotes were that the Dodgers were surprised to hear that Bauer would be playing on this team and pitching against them, but that they would not be interfering with anything. But Anthony, to Matt's point, like whatever the lowest level guys they've got left in the organization are probably showing up to the field this day, right?
This is brilliant. I mean, the writers are clearly off strike. I mean, this is too good. Everything with this guy just ends up becoming a meme. Yeah. He can't stop stepping on rakes. And this is another one of those times, he's just, he's playing for a team and he's going to come pitch. and still somehow it just seems like it's a laughable thing that he's doing. If there are no scouts out there, that'd be kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he's doing this for that reason, right? I mean, in all seriousness, he did that interview with Bill Shaken of the LA Times a few weeks ago, where they did sort of a mock interview, job interview. Like, if you were in the office of a front office, general manager, president of baseball ops, here's how this would go. What would your answers be? And he botched it. He botched it with Bill Shaken. And Shake's a great dude and a great reporter, but I'm sure he was pulling punches a little bit because he didn't want Trevor to just get up and walk out of the interview, right? Like, a general manager is not going to care if you get up and walk out. That's going to tell him everything he needs to know. Yeah. And so the fact that he screwed that up, and kind of doesn't seem to realize that is just, it's a lot of things. It's sad, it's shameful, it's kind of good riddance. It's just really become, like I said, everything he does is just sort of an eye roll inducing, sort of laughable offense. And I think this just somehow falls into that category again. And like, again, I just think if there are no scouts there, it's going to be like, all right, dude, you're either doing this for the love of it, or just stop now.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite bits from Bill Simmons. It's the Tyson Zone, where he basically said Mike Tyson got to a place in life where he could have read any headline about Mike Tyson and he would have believed it because he had just reached the point of like, oh yes, no, he did get a face tattoo. That's like really a thing that happened. And yes, he like owns tigers and lions and all that kind of thing. And who knows? It's still a good theory because now he's fighting Jake Paul and who knows what that's going to be. But I mean, it's like, I did not have Trevor Bauer paying $2,500 to play on a Japanese spring training traveling team to face the Dodgers. That wasn't on my bingo card for his 2024, but I remember 6-9 months ago having is Trevor Bauer going to pitch in Major League Baseball? And if this is where we are today, he's paying to be on the Asian Breeze or whatever that team was called. I think we probably have a pretty good sense of what the answer to that question is going to be and what the future holds for Trevor Bauer. So
what's more likely, that Gavin Lux plays shortstop for the Dodgers again full time, or that Trevor Bauer pitches in the majors?
Lux for sure for me, Matt.
No, I think I might go Bauer on that one. I mean, full time. I just don't see Lux and the Dodgers going back to that. But
it's a great question.
Can I defect? Can I punt and just say neither?
Yeah. Neither. It's a perfect segue. We are going to take some questions now. If you've got questions for Matt, for myself, for Anthony, we'd love to answer those. We got about 10 or 15 minutes here to answer those. So if you've got questions about things that we've touched on, things that we haven't touched on, feel free to throw those in the chat. All caps questions at the beginning is helpful for us, helps us identify those and be able to find them a little bit more quickly. But feel free to throw those questions in the chat. Michael's got a question here. We're back to Gavin Lux. Question: Gavin Lux is officially a bust. Shouldn't we need to reevaluate our organizational development of position players? It's not a secret. Our AA and AAA teams play on the moon. Organizational rehaul needed. Michael, you should look up the Dodger position player prospects who have come through the system. There's a guy named James Outman who was finished in the top 5 of Rookie of the Year voting last year. Will Smith, who's one of the best catchers in Major League Baseball, also a guy that the Dodgers developed. So Corey Seager, Cody Bellinger, there's a couple MVPs in there of guys they developed. I know that right now it may not feel like the position player side is on par or catching up with the pitching side of things, but I don't know. For me, Anthony, they don't need to reevaluate the way they develop position players. Do you agree?
I definitely agree. You ran through the quick list there. And there's plenty more of guys who have come up and been good. And look, we just said 10 or 15 minutes ago that Gavin Lux can still be an all-star second baseman. Yeah. I mean, we're not talking about this guy's offensive inability. We're just talking about the fact that he can't make a throw across the diamond right now. So he's not a guy that you write off yet. I don't think so. He's way too talented. Yeah. He mentioned player development in that question too. And, you think about all the guys who are on the trash heap for other organizations that the Dodgers have brought in and have turned into productive offensive players or productive positional players. Every year there's somebody new. You know what I mean? I mean, it was Jason Hayward last year. Max Muncy has turned into a 30 homer guy. Chris Taylor was a guy that, kind of, the famous, Zach Lee for Chris Taylor trade. But they consistently, find guys that nobody else wants and turn them into productive players on the roster and develop guys who are productive, that they've drafted and groomed. And so, it's frustrating that this is all happening. I understand that as Dodger fans, but I think questioning the chops of this player development system for this organization in particular is probably not the right way to go about that.
Even Lux, the last time we saw Lux as a full-time player in 2022 before he got injured, he was a 3-win player. That's really good. Those are really hard players to find. He was average defensively at second base and 15% better than average offensively. Pretty good. Let's do rapid fire on this one, Matt. Likely or unlikely Dodgers trade for a shortstop before the home opener? So before Dodger Stadium, before showing up to Dodger Stadium, yes or no to a trade for a shortstop?
No, I don't think so.
Anthony?
No.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that ship has sailed would be my guess. And that ship has left port and isn't going to be coming back until closer to the trade deadline here. There was another question here. Give me just a second. Oh, man. Here we go. This is it. Noisy Ninja 91. With all the other big bats in the lineup, isn't defense more important? Why not Rojas instead of Lux? At this point, I don't think his bat is that important. Anthony, we talked briefly about this. I think the question is fair, and I would make the case from why not put Rojas at shortstop, solve defense at one of the most important positions, cover for Max Muncy, who has struggled at third, and leave Mookie in a place at second base that's going to allow him more freedom offensively, probably less wear and tear, a position he has spent more time at. Why do you think they opted for Mookie instead of that option?
I think it's for what I said just a second ago, that I think they still see Gavin Lux as an all-star caliber infielder. Probably not at shortstop, obviously, but I think they see him as he has that kind of potential at second base. Like you just said, the last time we saw him there, he was a 3-win second baseman. Those things don't fall off of trees every single day for everybody to just pick up. That he was a good player and getting better. And I think that what we were hoping for coming into this season was that his offense was going to continue to progress. We weren't talking about necessarily how bad he might be at short. We started talking about that, and there were concerns, don't get me wrong. Like there were question marks there. But I think the bigger hope was that he was going to be an elite offensive second baseman. And that is still, elite offensive player. That's still possible for him as a second baseman. And so I think that's why you don't give up on him. And you said it yesterday, Jeff, Rojas's defense is always going to be there.
Yeah, I think it's fair. Let's get to another question. Kind of a fun one here. Matt, I'll come to you first. Sasha and Safisha want to know, who was your favorite Dodger as a kid? Matt, you go first.
I think I don't know if it was Sasha who asked this last time too, but my choice was Mike Piazza when I was younger as a kid, even though I didn't play like catcher at all. And then once Kershaw kind of started to establish himself, then I think he became a quick favorite.
Okay, Anthony.
Yeah, I think Kershaw is just like it's a guy you don't have to mention, right? It's like if you're a Laker fan, like it's Kobe, right? You kind of don't have to mention
non Kershaw, non Kobe division.
Yeah. I think Raul Mondesi.
Oh, it's my guy. I was gonna say I've got a little somewhere down here. There's a Raul Mondesi little figurine. Raul was my guy. The cannon in right field, so good. Let's see. Kino asking a question, Anthony, that you've referenced. So Matt, I'll come to you with this one. Why not move Gavin Lux to the outfield? If you wanted to keep his bat in the lineup, why not just make him a right fielder?
Well, he doesn't have, I don't know if he has the arm for right field.
He doesn't have arm for shortstop. He doesn't have it for right field.
So that's probably preventing that. And then he's not going to start over James Outman or Teoscar Hernandez in center or left field. And so there's just really not a spot for him out there anymore.
Yeah. I think it's a fair one. GI wants to know, if Lux can hold his weight at second, which I think he can, does Mookie eventually return to being an everyday right fielder? Or does the team value Hayward's bat more than Rojas's defense? I mean, one interesting thing that we're kind of getting at with this question is there's a short-term and a long-term piece to this, because we know who's going to be a shortstop for the Dodgers for the next 3 weeks. I mean, even if you wanted to extrapolate it beyond what any of us are willing to do and say Mookie's going to be the shortstop for 2024, you've still got questions beyond. Jason Hayward is not signed to a long-term deal out in right field. Gavin Lux has some team control for a few more years. And so there is some flexibility beyond. So Anthony, I'll come to you. Like, is it possible? You just laid out the case for, hey, there's still a pathway to Gavin Lux being a valuable player, but it's not in right field. It's not a shortstop. And Teoscar Hernandez on a 1-year deal. So maybe it's in left field. But like, do you think there's a way where Gavin Lux moves to second and this paves the way to Mookie Betts actually ending up back in right field eventually?
I think we probably see Mookie in right field on occasion.
Okay.
I don't think Jason Hayward is a 500 plate appearance player.
Yeah.
I don't think they see him that way. Like, I mean, there was a reason he was available to them last year in the first place. And so, you're looking at a guy who is just, kind of hanging on, and he was productive for them last year in the role that he played. And he's going to be another kind of role player this year in right field. I don't think he's a 500 plate appearance type of guy. So that leaves a little room for Mookie to kind of walk his way out there again from time to time. I don't think Mookie is going to be the everyday right fielder anymore for the Dodgers. I think they're gonna piece things together with him and Lux, and we may see Lux in left field some, and I could see a situation where maybe Teoscar moves to right field some. Maybe not every single day, but and that's not to say that moving from corner to corner is necessarily easy, but they didn't sign him to be their long-term left fielder. And if they think that they need to move him there to make sure that something else longer term is working for them, they may just do that.
Matt, briefly, are Mookie Betts' days in right field as the everyday right fielder? We've said Gavin Lux's days as the everyday shortstop are done. Are Mookie Betts' days as the everyday right fielder done, or do you think this cracked open that door a little bit?
I still think that his day as an everyday right fielder are over. I think maybe he's going to play there a little bit more than they might have envisioned this season, but certainly not on a daily basis.
Okay. Well, let's get to we got some people posting their favorite players growing up. We've got Sean Green. We'll get the Sean Green bobblehead going right here. So we got Sean Green, Jeffrey B. We've got Nomo. Hold on. We can do Nomo too. So we got a couple of these right next door. I don't think we're going to see an Andre Ethier in here, but if you did, I've got Andre Ethier. He's the only other guy within reaching distance. Tony says Eric Karros, another option. He was all those guys coming up. It was Mondesi was a clear 1. Piazza for me would have been a clear 2. Karros was 3. My mom loved Karros, and you can read into that whatever you would like to read into it.
We clearly are all from the same era as Dodger fans.
Exactly. Rod is not. His favorite player as a kid was Sandy Koufax. So, yep, Rod, that means you are slightly older than the three of us is what that means. So, good stuff there. Here we go. Our guy Blake has a question. Cost for Willy Adames. Blake, we all decided that we've moved on. Ha-Sung Kim is the new answer. So, sorry about that. We can discuss cost for Ha-Sung Kim in a future podcast. Yeah, Blake. Let's see. Howie wants to know, isn't the arm speed of Lux mental and not physical? Matt, what do you think? Do you think it's is it a fear of overthrowing that is causing him to sort of short arm and freak out, or do you think he just lacks the arm speed?
I don't think the arm speed is tied to any mental hurdles. It's just my belief. I do think his throwing struggles are more mental than physical, but I don't necessarily think that mentally is kind of impacting his arms. I think he's just trying to aim the baseball to first base, and that's more mental than like arm speed.
Yeah, I think you could look at him and say he doesn't have an 80 grade arm, to use some scouting terminology, but he had an arm they viewed good enough to play shortstop. The reason he's failing is not because the arm isn't strong enough. Now, the arm not being strong enough may not help his cause. Like, he might need more things to go right in order to have the arm strength to play shortstop. But Anthony, it doesn't seem like their concern was with his arm as much as his ability to get the brain to tell the arm what to do.
Yeah, I think both of you guys are right in certain aspects of this. They're not necessarily tied to each other, but I think the question's a legitimate one. Because when you are aiming the ball in that way, it's going to affect your arm strength. you're not letting it fly. And we kind of talked about that yesterday, where we would just, I would love to see him just freely throw the baseball to first base from whatever position he's at. And there's clearly a mental hurdle there that he hasn't been able to get over to do that. I think if he were able to do that, arm strength would not be an issue. I'm not saying he would, have a Rafael Furcal type of arm or anything like that, but I think arm strength probably would not be an issue.
Speaking of guys from the past, Cesar Izturis, Rafael Furcal, we're not seeing those guys come back through the door.
What about Jose Offerman?
Jose Offerman, a little before me. History Man says, is Dave Roberts on the hot seat? Yes or no, Matt?
No.
Anthony?
No.
Yeah, I agree. I know what the fans believe, but I keep saying it. He's got the highest winning percentage in Major League history. So, the front office is content. They probably know that the grass is not always greener on the other side.
Expectations have never been higher. I will say that.
Yeah. Oh man, Steve Sachs and Eric Gagne. Gagne belongs in the conversation. I joke that I have like different tiers of where bobbleheads exist, and Gagne is one of the former players that is on the top. He's the only former player, actually, I believe, that is on the top. So Eric Gagne,
that was an electrifying run.
What's that?
That was an electrifying run he had.
I've said this before. If I could pick any pitcher in all of Major League history, and I needed one out and my life depended on it, I want as many steroids as he can pump into himself, Eric Gagne, at his peak. Like, forget Mariano Rivera, forget Sandy Koufax. I want Eric Gagne. One out, my life depending on it. That guy at his peak, he was cheating. It was nasty, though. So that's all I'm saying.
So I had Eric Gagne when I was a Brewers beat writer. Okay. He came over and he was the closer for the Brewers, and it did not go well. But one of the first days in spring training, I talked to him, and I told him, I said, my dad's got this old Ford F-150, and we went to a game, and they were giving out these stickers for, windshields or whatever, car windows, and it said "Game Over" on it with a silhouette of him and his beard. Classic. And then like a baseball like breaking through a glass or something like that. And my dad had it on his truck for years. And I told Gagne that story, and he loved it. And so when he was going through these struggles, I mean, they were bad. It was really, really bad. And at that time, the Brewers had expectations. It was the Ryan Braun, Prince Fielder days. And so going through all that, like, I was always one of the guys that would have, really good interviews with him, because we had built that rapport, and he knew like the history of my father and his truck and Eric's sticker. So even on the days where like he was, he would blow a save, he would stand there and he would answer my questions. So I'll always love Eric Gagne for that.
Well, the Game Over shirts are, belong in the Hall of Fame somewhere for being the most outrageous things, with the beard coming off of it. I mean, those were absolutely legendary at Dodger Stadium. So, and Gagne's still kind of around, right, Matt? Like, is he
occasionally,
has been, not this year, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing him last year. Then I think he might have joined a different team, though, in some capacity. I don't remember specifically, though.
He's got a really good reputation around the game, despite the PED stuff that happened. He's a really well-liked person.
That year in Milwaukee, I was just looking it up. 50 appearances, 5.44 ERA, negative 0.9 wins above replacement. And the 5.44, by the way, according to FIP, was lucky. 6.13 was the FIP that year. So not the fastball velocity, 92.9. So apparently we need a little more from Gagne than 92.9. Yeah. So there you go. Rod, thank you for the super chat there as well. We greatly appreciate that. Good stuff there. So, all right. Well, let me get to one last question. And Anthony, I hope I asked this last time to somebody and it had already been asked, but I'm pretty positive you haven't answered. We do food questions from time to time. And I always say my favorite food question is this one. If you walk into a convenience store, I was on a road trip yesterday. This happened to me. Asked some friends. Great conversation. You walk into a convenience store, you get one drink, you get one snack, and you get one sweet item. Sugary. You could just, imagine your own convenience store, whatever convenience store you want. What 3 items are you coming home with?
Can one item cover 2 categories, or does it have to be 3?
Sure. Well, yeah. No, we'll see.
Okay. Slurpee.
That could be your drink. That's fine.
Okay,
So
so
that just
still got to get a
drink.
sugary item. I have a long
Yeah.
drive ahead of me then, clearly.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You're pre-diabetic by the end of this, but
Yes. Okay, Slurpee, and it's probably a mix of the pina colada and cherry.
okay.
Hot Cheetos.
Okay, flaming hot Cheetos, great.
Not even a question. And if I'm going something sweet beyond the Slurpee, underrated, not nearly discussed enough, Mambas.
Wow. Okay. Mambas. There. I like. I get it. I could see. I mean, it wouldn't be my first choice, but it's like it's in the category of candy that if it was sitting in front of me, I wouldn't be complaining. I'd be eating it. I'd be stuffing my face with it.
If I was driving to Glendale right now, those would be the 3 things I'd get.
Look at this one from NS: a gallon of chocolate milk, a family-sized bag of Takis, and an apple pie. I mean, I had a guy in a car with me yesterday who said chocolate milk was going to be his answer too. So, just imagine this combo here, Matt: chocolate milk, washing down some Takis, and then an apple pie to cleanse the palate at the end.
Yeah, that's all over the spectrum. A little bit of everything.
Yeah. This is also classic. Blake Williams, I've never heard of Mambas, so shocking there. That means that's a good thing for you, Anthony, by the way. If Blake doesn't agree with or hasn't heard of the thing, then that's a positive. Here you go. We got
a Costco size box of Mambas for Willie Adames.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, that price, we could be talking. Hawaiian Kira, nice cap, Jeff. Thank you. I wore it in honor of the Lakers, and that's why they won tonight. So you're welcome to everybody that's rooting for the Lakers. She wants to know, Anthony, if you've got a favorite food.
Yeah, it's a carousel of a couple of maybe 3 things, but I think the most dominant in that trio are street tacos.
Street tacos. Okay. And what kind of meat? Are we going carne asada or?
I do asada. I do pastor. Carnitas are a favorite of mine. That's asada and carnitas are it kind of depends on the truck, because
depends on the
specialty. Sure. I'm going with the truck specialty there.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say street tacos are my,
What are the other 2 kind of in the rotation, in the mix, depending on the day?
Just a nice medium rare steak.
Okay. Medium rare. Good answer there. Good answer on medium rare. Like that.
Yeah. And I really, really like just a nice bowl of pasta.
Okay. It's great.
All great choices.
Yeah, we got. Are we going like what kind of noodles are we going? What kind of sauce? Are we just going like spaghetti and marinara?
I tend to lean towards spaghetti noodles because I like to just nice and neat roll them up on the fork and get them in there.
Okay.
And sauce wise, marinara is fine, but it's got to have some kick, man. There's got to be some chili peppers in there, some flakes in there, something like that. Spicy is the way to go.
Okay. I like it. When you said pastor, that's become like my go-to, because my favorite place that's like incredible. And so it wasn't in my rotation of meats in a taco or a burrito, but now it's pretty much my go-to. DJ Jesse's wants to know a case of birrias. Birrias? I always mispronounce this word. Is it birria?
You have to roll you're for the
birria.
There you go. It's a little bit better.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm white. I'm white here. Okay. So I'm trying my best. I'll tell you guys a funny story. There's a Mexican meat market in town. And I do a lot of work with like middle school and high school age kids. So there's a Hispanic kid in town that I was hanging out with. I was like, hey, where do you want to go for lunch? He's like, let's go to the Mexican meat market. I'm like, great, because they do tacos and stuff. It's fantastic. So I walk in there. And I swear to you, there were like 10 people that spoke to this kid in Spanish that basically said, are you okay? to him. Because it was like, who's the white guy that's in here? Basically. So it was a great moment. And he couldn't. And then it was like him trying to explain like who I was just a whole adventure. And it was a fantastic thing. But he was the person, I tell the story because he's the person that corrected me on how to pronounce this. Obviously, he didn't do a good enough job, or I've forgotten more likely. But Matt, do you like these items? This seems to be a hot item at taco trucks everywhere now. Are you a fan?
I am a big fan because I love cheese, and so that's what these have a lot of, and so that works. It's right up my alley.
Yeah, they're
Anthony?
money. Oh, money for sure.
I ordered these. We were on a road trip, taco truck on the way out. They had these on the menu. It's pretty much like it feels like it's just a safe bet because of the amount of cheese. It's like it's not going to suck. Like if you go to get street tacos and the meat is dry or something, it's like there's no salvaging that. This, I don't even think the meat was that great. And it was like at the end of the day, it's basically just a quesadilla. Worst case scenario, it's a quesadilla. Best case scenario, it's like fantastic. So there you go. There you go. All right. Well, I think that'll do it for us. Anthony, I'm going to say of people that we've had on and talked about food, I think your food opinions are at the top. I mean, and I wish I could tell you that meant a lot based on the people that we've had food conversations here. It's a low bar, but medium rare steak, street tacos, pasta with a little bit of kick, a Slurpee. It's a positive momentum for usually if we ask people like 5 or 6 food questions, we're going to get one thing that is absolute chaos out of them. And Matt, at least from my opinion, we didn't get that today.
Yeah, no, not at all. That all that stuff checked out. Nobody in the chat was going crazy. There's a lot of people agreeing with Anthony. So yeah, it was a widely accepted range of answers.
Congratulations. My entire career has been based on clearing low bars, so I'm happy to continue that trend.
Perfect. Well, Anthony's going to be with us off and on here for the next couple of weeks, which we greatly appreciate. So, Anthony, thanks for being with us. Matt, thanks for being with us. Folks joining us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, thank you. Huge show tonight. 1,000 people watching live, which is awesome for a late night Friday show. So, thank you. Those listening after the fact via podcast, Apple, Spotify, and Google, we appreciate you. If you're new and didn't know that one of those existed, go ahead and find the podcast or check out the Dodger Blue 1958 YouTube page as well. We'd love to have you. You can find Anthony at A Witrado on social media. Again, he is a senior baseball writer for Forbes. So, Anthony, thank you again for joining us. Matt, enjoy the rest of your night, folks. Thank you. As always, go Dodgers.